Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Podcast on D-Shot, and today's guest is a Racine native, originally from Racine, that's in the music scene out in Los Angeles, and is actually one of my dad's former students. If you don't know, my dad taught 35 years as a music teacher in the Racine Unified School District, mainly at McKinley Middle School in Racine before going to Park. And so my guest today is Curtis Crump. Curtis, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
So what I want to start with, Curtis, is what were your kind of like early influences in music, and like what recordings did you have growing up like around you?
The funny thing, I was gonna have like a weird like journey to get into some other like recordings and things. Like I grew up in a very Christian household, and pretty much our life was always just going back and forth to church. So really, before like actually starting to be into music, it was all like gospel music. So a lot of choir stuff, a lot of Fred Hammond, uh, a lot of like Adams, Kirk Franklin. But the cool thing is though, some of those artists, like especially like Kirk Franklin and Fred Hammond, they have so many different influences in their music. There's stuff I didn't even realize that I was starting to grab onto and gravitate towards in their music, and still gospel, but like crossing these genres though. And that was really big for them to start to cross those in late 90s, early 2000s. So, but growing up it was way more gospel, and then if I had a babysitter that put something else on, that's when I heard other things. Otherwise I didn't grow up listening to like other like jazz records and stuff too. Like it all kind of came slowly.
Okay. I
um
guess how did kind of obviously you're a saxophone player. Was that your first instrument or uh
um Once I got, I guess, quote unquote serious about music, yes. My dad, he was our like piano and organ player growing up in church. And he also played drums and uh like all the different, like so he showed me some things and I kind of like try to play and didn't really know all the pieces were yet. And all the kids wanted to play drums, so I was kind of poke at that. But when things got like when I was like, oh yeah, I want to play like music. My uncle used to play saxophone, my oldest uncle on my mom's side. And like when I was like, oh, you have options, I was like, I want to play saxophone with my uncle. And then that's when I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. And I can be serious about it. And then because I played saxophone at the church, they're like, oh, bring your saxophone, bring it, just come and play and we'll figure out how it works. And instead of being like I'm playing traditional stuff, like we're gonna prepare a piece for you to do a solo. Like the first time I did was that, but they just want me to come and bring it all the time. So kind of like when I was actually under, like you mentioned, like your dad was my teacher. I remember he gave us like in the jazz band and stuff, and gave us some blues scales and like going through scales like that and stuff. And I was like, okay, I use those and just try to play in my church when music was going and stuff. And before I really knew like that was like really improvising and things like that, I was doing that like in middle school.
so
So I
that was
kind of got
kind
a
of
good.
more so your church start kind of ended up being a little bit more of like a contemporary.
Yeah, but like still
Okay.
like but still like gospel and like more modern stuff like that. But yeah. Mhm.
Okay. My next thing is you were probably one of the top, I probably would say you were probably one of the top four musicians my dad probably had in
Okay.
terms
Well,
of maybe
thanks.
McKinley. So I'd probably say like you, Maggie, and Nolan. And then there's the one girl that played violin at Carnegie, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know what her name is, but how did kind of my dad influence you to get into a career in music? And I guess how was it musically to have musicians like obviously Maggie and Nolan in middle school as well, as kind of those kids that you were in band with?
Well, starting from like you said with your dad, like I said just a second ago, like him just kind of giving us like the freedom to like to play and try to like solo and stuff, and giving us these different tools and things. Like, oh, okay, I didn't even know. Like I can use these things. So and he was very encouraging for us to like try to do like solo stuff and to like kind of explore our musical interests. And then with Maggie and Nolan and some other friends, like we just had, I mean, it was a blessing to have like those kind of friends who are also serious about music. I think they had Maggie and Nolan, they had like a little like band that they formed with some other
Yeah,
friends
wasn't
who
that
went
with
to.
it with Maggie's mom?
Yeah, she helped kind of
Yeah.
like orchestrate that and stuff. And yeah, they had our friends Steven and Katie Wright and wow, why did I forget Luke's last name? Luke Patterson? Luke, wow. I just totally forgot his whole name. I don't think it's Peterson, um but the whole group, they had a whole like kind of group together. And we're doing like jazz standards early on and we do stuff around town. And like they would bring that to like the school and, oh, we working on this thing. Da, da, da. I'm like, what is that? Let me see. Let me probably play that. Let me, So like it was fun, like mildly competitive, like but like not too much where it's ever like discouraging or anything like that. It was just like what we did, Even now being like an adult, there's so much like I just fell more and more in love with music. Like there's other things that normally like, like it was like sports and stuff like I do, but I'm not into them. Like there's always been like music that was just kind of my main focus and what my friends were into and stuff. Like, yeah. So
I guess kind of what I don't know about you, but like sometimes whenever I would have my dad as a director, it was kind of like, do I really have to deal with him or anything? Like, I guess because I was like, sometimes he comes off like goofy or whatever. But I guess like, what was he like as a middle school teacher for you? And then like any good stories about him?
man, I gotta reach, man, to think of some. Because I mean, he was like goofy and real, which I'm to this day still really goofy, and like I love that. Um, Even my mom would even just kind of like, remember, oh yeah, Shotler, yeah, like I love when he be directing and his head starts moving, da da da. Like, um, I don't know if I have any like recall any like really big significant like stories. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have any like very specific to him like stories though. I remember different like moments, but
I know that you're a saxophone player, so I might as well bring this up. So when you're in middle school, did you have any kind of obviously my brother was a pretty good saxophone player. Did you ever kind of get to know my brother too?
no, not so much.
Okay.
I would say though, like what made a big like there's a couple like in a row things in middle school that like changed like made the saxophone thing like serious. Probably the biggest thing because one thing that your dad would do with the help of the late Ed Berglis at Park um would they would have the combined concerts
Yeah,
where
I
like the middle
remember
schools would
those.
come. Yeah. So when I was in seventh grade, there was a saxophone player who's from Racine. I think still lives in New Orleans. William Terry.
Okay.
He played tenor saxophone, and he was the guest artist that year. So, and that was really cool. Like I got to see like like people really playing saxophone and stuff. Mind you, like even being a saxophone player in middle school, I wasn't listening to like jazz records. I just didn't have the wherewithal to go to do that. But then my eighth grade year, that's when the late Tim Bell was the feature.
Okay.
And like hearing him like play My One and Only Love and I'm trying to think if it was like When You're Smiling, because he played the clarinet. I never heard anybody play the clarinet like that. Yeah, like that, like even my friends will still tell you, like, yeah, Curtis, your jaw was on the floor that entire concert. Like we got done playing, we hit a guitar, and we watched the top band of Park just play with him, and I was like, I had no idea that like that was possible,
Yeah,
you
I
know.
remember going to one of those, and I think Steve Wiest was one of the guests.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You're talking about Tim Bell a little bit. Obviously you went to Parkside for your college degree.
Mhm.
What kind of influences did you from Parkside helped you kind of get where you're at now?
Well, it definitely shaped the trajectory. Like I was already like hoping and excited, like before knowing that he was there, maybe having a chance to kind of study under him, Tim Bell, and he would come in like to like direct for us at Park in high school and stuff. So I got to kind of know him then and see him around town. But when Tim Bell passed the mantle on and they hired Russ Johnson as the director, that kind of just changed everything. Definitely for the better. Um, Doug Johnson got to know and talk to Russ kind of as he was transitioning in, and then Doug had told Russ about me and Nolan, um, and he was like, "Hey man, like I want you to meet these kids. Like they're really into music, and I think that's what they want to like continue to do afterwards. I think it'd be really nice for you to like to get to work with them." He was like, "Yeah, like yeah, bring them in, let them sit in for a big band rehearsal or whatever, like the college big band." So me and Nolan were juniors, and Russ like we got to sit in and sight read music with them and stuff, and Russ loved our energy and like could see what we could do early on, and he let us play that concert in spring 2010 with them with the college students. He let us like sit in and play with them, and then for the next year after that, if we were available to come and do rehearsals and be part of for the concerts, he let us do that as well. There's a couple of things I couldn't make because I ended up being involved with other stuff at school, like musicals. But Russ also helped me prepare for like my college auditions, and like there were some other schools I could have went to, but like looking financially and then thinking about like logically, I believe I mean I didn't really know any better, but like I could tell that Russ like he had been to these big schools and definitely knew everything that like that I would need to know. So I was like, man, if I can just go to Parkside and be under him, I'll be fine. And I'm very thankful to say that that was the case. So being able to study that close with him, him being able to like feed information to me when he would know like, oh, he knows this already. Well, here's some other stuff. I can tell you this. Like, okay, well now you've gotten this far. You can also do this with this. And he was always very honest with me. Like he never would. He would like sing all my praises whenever it was necessary. And he would also tell me everything I was doing wrong and things I needed to make sure to do, like all my flaws. Like he was, Russ was always so real. And just a huge influence to where I got to today. Yeah.
I think the next thing I have is I guess any favorite jazz artists or jazz charts or favorite recordings that you have now?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I would say, man.
Any like Sonny
Like,
Rollins or
yeah.
Branford Marcellus?
Mhm. Um, with Sonny, I want to say, why am I blanking on some of these titles? Like, I wasn't actually gonna say like Sonny's one of my favorite like saxophone players like ever. I love his motive development. But I think I was gonna say like for some favorite like records, like I like some newer stuff. Like I like a lot of some of the early '90s like Joshua Redman stuff and some stuff with his trio. Like I really love Jazz Crimes by Joshua Redman and Hide and Seek by Joshua Redman. Um, like one thing for both his playing and for the compositions, like in the arrangements, I like pretty much all of Joe Henderson's big band album. Like like those charts, like the way he just like voiced everything. And I mean Joe Henderson's just a genius himself as well. Um so those are some that come to the top of my head like that for like favorite artist records. Um yeah. Even older than that, I found out like later, kind of in my studies at Parkside, like about like Hank Mobley. Like I love his sound and like his stuff is pretty much just like a blueprint for playing bebop. Like in a very like not like crazy way. Like everybody, Bird is for all like the fast stuff and things like that. But if you're trying to just like be right there in the middle and focus on tone and like kind of get the best of all of that, I really love Hank Mobley for that.
Okay. Obviously you're out in Los Angeles right now.
Mhm.
What's kind of the performance scene around there? How are those gigs? I know I talked to Chris Mesh about how Chicago is and how he's been in Chicago and New York. I guess kind of what's that kind of scene like?
Well, I will say for my perspective, I feel like I've been like trying to think the best word to say. Definitely like just the um it's been a very unique experience, I think, in my like in where my lane has been. Because like the LAC can be competitive, but it depends on like it's really like who you know and what you can do. And then if the right people like when people start to see you, it can be very fast. Um like very, very fast paced. It's usually just about connections more than anything out this way. Um like pre-COVID, which I was only here for 2 months before the whole shutdown. I got here January 2020, the world shut down March 2020. And that first couple months, I really didn't get that much traction at all. Like a couple connections that were just like smaller things. Then so the shutdown happened. And, you know, like here in the Southern California, it stays pretty warm most of the year. Even when it gets cold, it's like warm and then like back and forth. So things seem to be better. Like there are like jams and things happening, concerts happening outside, even though like so you can be socially distanced
Mm.
and be as safe as possible, but like non people still want to like play and have a good time and be so like something. So like September through November or like December 2020, that was happening, and I found myself being able to meet and connect with people who I hadn't met. And then we re-shut down, and at least in California, for those holidays because it spiked again. And then things started to happen, like vaccines started to kind of roll out. And then about March, things kind of started to reopen again a little bit, like outside events and things like that. Make some other connections. And then 2 weeks, like April 15th was when everybody was eligible to get a vaccine, essentially, like when like to the public. And then about 2 weeks later, like when like May started, people were organizing events again and gigs were kind of, back. And I had been around during the pandemic just enough with just the right people. I started getting calls. I happened to be in the right place at the right time. People could see like, oh, okay. I know we didn't really talk about this too much, throughout the years, my piano playing grew and kind of caught up to my saxophone playing. So now it's it's a literal double. There's not really a difference between the two at this point.
Is it
As far
just
as skill level,
is it just jazz or is it kind of a combination of different things in
it's
terms of the
it's
different types of
definitely
gigs?
yeah, it's definitely a combination. But like all of those different skills kind of come into play. Yeah, I did a couple like remote like kind of jazz gigs with some artists that way, like some vocalists who like will sing jazz and some like R&B stuff. Some of the churches started to open back up, so I started to play some churches out here. Um, but then like there'd be like different private gigs and things like that. Like there's a few different like things I did, like some like little like solo saxophone kind of like solo saxophone like I guess pop gig stuff where I'm playing like I could play some standards, but I might play like Al Green or Marvin Gaye, just like kind of oldies in that kind of vein of stuff. Yeah. And I was able to keep like just meeting more people, and it just was like a really big snowball effect.
Is there
Um,
obviously with kind of me being a big sports guy, is there any gigs like that you've ever had where it's like been near any of the LA sports stuff like what's it called now, crypto.com arena, like it used to be Staples Center. Is there
yeah.
anything kind of around those type of things?
I haven't had a chance to do any of those things yet. I knew some of the musicians who were like a part of the Super Bowl and some people who've done stuff around there. Like if I don't know them directly, like some of my friends know them directly or have
Okay.
worked with them directly. Um
I guess
Yeah,
what
but
were your thoughts? What were your thoughts on the halftime show?
oh, it's beautiful, man. Like it was a big step for hip hop, a big step for like Los Angeles, and for like the whole culture like to kind of come to a head at like at that. I feel like all the music was picked like correctly. The transitions were great. The choreography was great. No, I loved it. I loved the halftime show.
Did you get what was kind of your Super Bowl plan? Did you get to go close to the to where the stadium is, or like what was the kind of?
Well, like my main thing was I was trying to make sure I was like I had things to do. It was Sunday, so I
Okay.
actually had two churches to play at that day, and one of the services were like really late. So for us, Super Bowl started 3:30 Pacific time, and I had a church service that started at 2 in Inglewood.
Really?
That's the stadium is in Inglewood. Like
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's gonna be kind of close. Da, 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 da. But and I had service earlier, like a little farther down from that. So I just kind of stayed in the streets, like and like kind of bid my time. So I saw the game probably starting at the second quarter when I got back home. But yeah, me and my roommates we just watched it and stuff and had a good time.
Have you been to Staples Center or any of those kind of LA sporting venues at all, or I don't
Mm,
know how much of a sports guy you are?
yeah, no, not yet. I haven't had a chance to yet. Um, I had to just like double check that in my head. Yeah, no, I haven't had a chance to yet. Hopefully
Okay.
soon.
Okay.
Yeah, like even though I'm not like a huge sports guy, both my roommates are. So they're both from Kenosha. Um, yeah, but they're huge sports guys. So
Okay. You just had my dad kind of brought this up to kind of talk about. You just had like a concert that you just did called the Too Short Tiny Desk Home Concert that
mhm.
involved
Yeah.
rapping. I guess what was that concert like and being able to kind of combine different types of music together? Because obviously you were on keyboard, but I know you had your saxophone off to the side too, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, trying to think of how to even start that one. So, yeah, if you haven't seen it, you should see it. It's pretty cool. Um, yeah, we basically just kind of played all his like different hip hop tracks like live, and the drummer Robert Miller, he was the music director for that Tiny Desk because because of COVID, they've been doing the series of Tiny Desk home concerts. So instead of like how they usually do it, everybody flies to DC, goes to the NPR Tiny Desk location. They've been doing like on location somewhere else and just doing it. So they asked Too Short to do one, and he did it in his like he has a studio here in LA that's like all decked out and stuff. Like it's like yeah. Um, so but the music director, I met him. This is actually our first time working together. Like we sat together. Like he sat in on a gig I was playing at with one of his like best friends, and that's how we first met. And I've seen him around town and some other like gigs and stuff too. So I've been on like his mind, like seeing him. And he found my number. He's like, "Hey, is this Curtis?" Like, "Yep, it's me." He's like, "You free this coming Tuesday?" I'm like, "Yep, what you need?" Like, the gig pays this much. Da, da, da. I'm like, "What is it?" And he said, "Too Short Tiny Desk." This is literally just how it happened. It was just a call, like no crazy prep before. Um, he sent me the charts and stuff, and we had like a long rehearsal the day before. We recorded it, and then took the next day to like record the concert and stuff. And it's a great group of guys. And Too Short himself, I don't know if you know, like, 'cause Too Short is a former member of NWA,
Okay.
and he was celebrating 35 years has his own artist, like since the late '80s to now. And literally, we played besides the intro, like record, we played songs from like the '80s, the '90s, the 2000s, 2010s, and now 2020 or 2020s.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So yeah, I think you'll enjoy it if you haven't seen it yet. Um, but yeah, it was just an awesome experience to be a part of and stuff, and um, if anything, is like a step up in exposure, because then it's like we don't, a lot of musicians, we're not going to work for just exposure, but exposure never hurts.
Mm.
And like even though like anybody could have had that gig or whatever, it helps like this quote unquote credibility as we go on, because everybody can play, but like I said, especially here in LA, it's a lot of who you know. It's a lot of the connections. So like sometimes it gets to be like what you've done, which isn't always like a fair thing, but the more things you can have as far as that resume goes, the better it would be to keep that going.
I guess a couple of Kenosha Racine things. Obviously with you being out in Los Angeles, I guess have you had any, obviously you haven't been to any of the sports stuff yet, but I don't know if you know that Gavin Lux is on the Dodgers and is from Kenosha. So I don't know if you'd ever get his jersey or maybe run into him a little bit or that sort of thing.
Yeah, I have been. Like I said, but I think I've heard that name because my roommates, they're big into sports.
Okay.
And they're both also from Kenosha too. So
okay, I guess from a Kenosha Racine side of things, who are your like favorite Kenosha Racine kind of jazz people that you've played with? I don't know if you played with John Storino or
he
any of the
actually
Wheelies.
Yeah, no, we actually John recently just like reached out to me. We just reconnected like a couple days ago on Instagram. And John's in New York. He's definitely by far one of my favorite like musicians and composers like that's come out of our area. I'm trying to think though, like I haven't seen some people in a while. Like I love like separately like Eric Shore and Dustin. Well, I can't think of Lorenzi. Trying to think who else I can think of, but those are like the names that come off the top of my head like right away.
Mm.
And I know Tim's back around. Tim Ibsen's back around. One of my favorite bass players. Tim.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess what are your future gigs or what's your next like future music plan?
Well, I'm just kind of in a place now where I'm just kind of riding the wave of what's happening and the different calls I'm getting, just kind of keep kind of seeing the world, especially in like being here in LA and it's taking all that in. Like as far as like smaller things happening, one thing I've always wanted to do, and like one of the reasons I moved to LA, is to do like some sort of film or TV scoring. So I'm starting to get some things with some of like friends of mine who are starting to put some projects together. So that's starting to roll out. I have my own group that I formed like in July now that we've started to get different residencies in different like locations here. And we play all kinds of stuff between like from jazz to the pop R&B stuff, to some hip hop stuff. We kind of play like a big mix of it all, but they all went to different jazz schools and stuff too. So we like relate that way. And can play a lot of different things. So that's been going well. The guitar player for that group, his name is Mauricio Guerrero Jr. He's also the music director for this Latin artist named Danny Ocean. Danny Ocean's like he's becoming like growing at a very exponential rate. Like Latin pop and reggaeton artist. He's Venezuelan, but he's like huge in different like countries like Mexico and Colombia. He just released his second album a couple of days ago. We're part of his band. So like that just started in October. So like in November, we played in Monterrey, Mexico and Puerto Rico. In December, we played in Tijuana and Cancun. Just 2 weeks ago, we were in Leon, Mexico. And then the next couple months, we're going back to Mexico for a few shows. We have a show in LA, a show in Miami. We'll have a show in Vegas, part of a festival. So that's been the latest big thing that's going on. Playing for tens of thousands of people with his music. So
I guess we didn't. I don't know, if we didn't hit on any other like music interests. Obviously, I'm kind of big in the John Philip Sousa stuff. Just what's your other kind of music interest?
um well um I feel like I have like a really widespread palette. The things I gravitate towards though um are things that have usually some sort of jazz influence, but they might
Okay.
not be specifically jazz. So like clearly gospel like falls into that, blues falls into that. Like R&B and neo soul really do fall heavily into that. Like even some of the new, like I'm not saying like trap music, but like some of the other hip hop stuff, like the way they do some of these samples now, they're becoming way more musical in the instrumentation. So more and more into that. Uh, and then there's like some different like alternative music and stuff that I found more artists and helping out people out here with. Um, that's been cool. Like it's kind of a little more experimental, kind of bringing like the '80s synth thing is like really popular now, and a lot of kind of like cross genre. That's kind of making a comeback. So yeah, different things like that. Another shout out to Russ just for always encouraging. Like it doesn't matter what the genre of music is, as long as it feels good, you know you can feel it's communicating. It's good music, you know.
Okay. I guess anything you want to add, Curtis?
Um, then trying to think. Uh, well, the only thing I guess I would just say maybe is just it's really cool to be like in the position I am, like I'm in now, being here, and I definitely don't like take for granted all the steps that it took to get to this point either. Because even when I talk to people too, like just as far as like my own growth that I've seen and just like how things have happened, it's just a blessing to be um, working like I am here now and to know the people I have and have the experiences I've had. And I know it's still only just the beginning, so I'm just really excited. And like thanks to like people like your dad and Russ and Doug Johnson and his wife Diane, who was actually my first music teacher in at frat. Um, you know, to just like everybody in Racine Kenosha who's like supported me, that came to a gig or hired me for something. Like shout out to just like the Parkside staff in general, um, from like the music department, but even
Even
like
like
the
Mark Eichner.
chancellor. Yeah. Oh yeah. Of course, Mark.
So I know you played in the Racine band as well back
Yeah.
when too.
Yeah, he would be. Yeah, Mark was always like very patient with me, and I'm forever grateful. Um, you know, yeah, no, just it's. I'm thankful for everything and everybody who ever gotten a chance to who's poured into me like before making this jump, and even those like and the people who were hoping that I would make the move because like if I moved, look, I moved 2 months before COVID happened. If I didn't move then, I probably wouldn't have moved to this point yet either, because everything isn't back to normal yet. But I've been able to be blessed and to thrive after, like during and after all of this. So
All
yeah,
right. All right, Curtis. It was cool to have a chance to talk to you about your career so far.
yeah, man,
I'll say hey back to my dad for you. So
yeah,
thanks for joining me.
yeah, of course, Dan.
All
Yeah,
right.
take it easy.
All right.